We all pretty much get into the office around 9:30 in the morning. We have an editorial staff meeting at 10:30, so don't try to reach us between 10:30 and 11:15 thereabouts, because you won't get us. After that, everybody goes off and does their thing, tracking down the news, talking to people. Our official copy deadline is 4 p.m., so that's why we often say, I need to talk to somebody by, ideally, 2:30, 3 o'clock. Deadlines, of course, are often made to be broken, so sometimes things do get pushed, but we really appreciate it if we can do interviews and get information earlier in the day, obviously. And then things go through the editing process, and in a perfect world, everyone is done, and the issue is posted to our website, not live yet, but up there, and we can go home or go to events like this by 6 or 6:30. And then we get up the next day and do it again. We do have a somewhat of a it's a niche audience that we serve, but somewhat fractured. The main audience is institutional and asset managers, primarily on the sales and marketing side, but we do have a fair number of folks on the portfolio management and just on the investment side. There's a lot of overlap there. But put a gun to our head and we'll say that our core readership is sales and marketing folks at the institutional asset managers. We also have a good number of pension fund executives, whether public or corporate, and foundations and endowments and that space. And then we also have, I'll toss this down to Tom to talk real quick about your beat, but we also have the SMA managers and the financial advisors who read Tom's coverage.
Our biggest single group of readers is advisors, and we tend to focus so much on investments that I think advisors like us because they don't really get that at other publications. They'll get advisor coverage at a lot of different publications, trades and the wires, but we narrow it down very much to the investment process, the decisions that they make about how to choose investments, as well as just how the products are set up and sold. And that's probably where we hang our hat to distinguish ourselves from the other advisor publications.
Clearly, the ultimate person or people that we want to speak to are the ones who are involved in the issues at the asset managers and the ones who know exactly what's happening. And you guys are generally the conduit for getting to that, to those people. And so, to the extent that you guys can facilitate, quick access for interviews, given our deadlines and the turnaround time that we have, that's very helpful. Oftentimes these are stories that we have only a few hours or so to try and work on before we have to write them up and file them.
For me, I want a CIO. I want a senior investment manager, or I want someone who's making the call on the investment at an institution, and it just usually I will not take up very much of their time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd love a decision maker, like a head of sales, head of marketing, head of distribution, which could, at some places, is the same person, or just a CIO, someone who can just give me a brief overview, even if it's not necessarily for a story. It's wonderful when I have someone reach out to me and who says, a PR person reach out to me and says, I want you to just speak to this person to learn more about the manager. I love those opportunities and I welcome them, because then I know who I need to ask for next time I'm doing a story on that firm. So just someone at the top who can have a 5-minute informal background conversation is really helpful when you're covering a manager, especially one who's not so inclined to talk to the press all the time, which I have a couple of those. So, yeah.
Real quick follow-up on that. I mean, just as a good example, we got a press release. Was it yesterday? I'm not going to name names, but it was about a new venture that one of the companies we cover was launching, and a relationship with another firm. It looked somewhat interesting. It wasn't something that we would jump on, but like, okay, I threw it to Matt to follow up on it, and he called these guys up, and they're like, oh yeah, you know what? Glad you got the release. Yeah, the person who's quoted in the release and who knows all that, they're on vacation until Monday, and this was yesterday, so Wednesday. And, you know, I mean, we certainly understand that you guys have all you know, the things to deal with there, and the executives and all that. So I don't think that we don't see things from your point of view. But for instance, in this case, we're like, well, we're not going to do the story without talking to people. Maybe we'll come back to it on Monday. Maybe there'll be other stuff going on, and you know, that press release, as far as getting coverage of FundFire, will have, you know, just gone to waste. So that's just something to, I guess I would say, to keep in mind if you can.
We do try to go a little bit deeper than what's in a press release. So we do want to talk to somebody. So it's also frustrating when we hear back, which happens often enough, that you have to stick to what's in the press release. We can't give you anything else. A lot of times we just won't bother covering the story, or we'll just use a wire story, and we won't really give it more attention, because our readers tend to expect a little bit more. We come out the next morning, so we're not trying to hit people hard with the 2 paragraphs of what just happened. We'll do that with the breaking news alert, but we do want to go a little deeper, so it really is helpful when, especially when you put out a release, to help us go a little deeper, because our you know, subscribers are expecting us to ask a few more questions.
Our deadline is 4 p.m. Please do not
And
call us
I'm
at
a real jerk about that, too.
just know our deadlines. That's the only thing. I'm so happy to take a call. And actually, I would say I prefer, if it's something you've been trying to get to me on email and I'm just not responding, I think this goes for any of us. I do think a phone call is helpful, because even if it just goes to voicemail, I'll listen to that, whereas I might not get the email. There are so many emails I don't even know that I have. So, you know, I really do appreciate the phone calls. It's just I would like people to be more aware of the deadline. I think a lot of people are, and there's very few people who call right around 3:30. But, you know, anywhere from 3 to 4 is just not a good time. And I actually don't like to be that person that's just like, this is not a good time, because, you know, I don't want to, it might be something really interesting and newsworthy that I'd like to write a story on tomorrow, but you know, I just would say no, the deadline, that would be my biggest pet